Clean Care Seminars presents Jeff Bishop. With a degree in management from University of Georgia, Jeff's teaching career began in 1973. Since then, he has authored 12 books on cleaning and disaster restoration, sold throughout the U.S. and several other countries. As administrator of Clean Care Seminars, Bishop teaches over 60 courses annually in 7 cleaning and restoration subjects. An IICUC Master Cleaner and Senior Inspector, for years Jeff has traversed the U.S. teaching cleaning and restoration techniques.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bishop with Clean Care Seminars, and today I'll be talking to you about one of my favorite subjects, specialized carpet spotting. And I have here with me to assist the industry's foremost authority on carpet repair and reinstallation techniques, Jim Carfield.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Jim, glad to have you today.
Glad to be here.
And the information that we're going to be covering in this session is covered a little more thoroughly for those of you who would like to get a little more information on it in our book entitled Specialized Carpet Spotting. This has been on the market for a number of years.
Our guys use this all the time.
Well, good. It also has a little summary chart in the back of the book for your information that covers a lot of the information that we'll be discussing in a little more detail. It's a little chart that can be placed right on the spotting kit and referenced as you go along so that you don't have to carry the book around with you everywhere you go. So, without any further ado, let's get started talking about specialized carpet spotting.
I'm ready.
Jim, we need to begin our discussion of specialized carpet spotting with the brief discussion on the principles of spotting. So let's take a look.
Okay.
The first principle I want to cover, and one that's often forgotten, is one that an old platoon sergeant of mine back in the Army taught me about. It was the principle of KISS. You know what that stands for?
No, I have no idea.
It stands for keep it simple, stupid. He usually added a sir on the end of that, but it's true. If you can get it out with some of the simple methods like dry vacuuming, do so. For instance, here on the table I have a piece of carpet that has some copier toner on it. Graphite, copier toner, a lot of different things like that. Before it gets ground in, it's very simple to remove with dry vacuuming processes. If I start using chemicals on this, however, it becomes very difficult. For instance, let me see the vacuum tool and we'll crank it up and see what we can do with this horrendous spot.
Okay.
Miraculous, huh?
Well, that's
keep
it simple.
The idea is to do the simple things. I can remember many a time when I went in and spent 10 or 15 minutes trying to get out one little spot the size of a dime, and when I finally cranked up my vacuum, I got all the rest of the spots in that particular room out very quickly. So keep it simple. Second principle is to act quickly. The faster you get to the spot, the better off you're going to be. Gives it less time to set. Third, know what the fiber content is. That has an awful lot to do with the amount of time and effort you want to place on the spot. Indeed, whether or not you want to jump right on into the carpet repair techniques that you know so well and teach so well.
Fiber content, perform a burn test.
Right. The nylons, for instance, are going to absorb a lot of the acid dye stuffs that are in a lot of the food spots a lot more readily than other types of fibers such as olefin, acrylic, or polyester will. The fourth principle involves determining what the spot's components are. Basically, go through the identification task that we'll talk about in a moment, but basically just ask, lady, what is this on your carpet here? What kind of material has been spilled here? The fifth principle, be patient. It takes time to work spots out. If you get in too much of a hurry, if you work a spot too aggressively, you're liable to distort the carpet yarn. So it is very, very important for us to be patient. Plan on 5 or 10 minutes, especially with some of the hardened paint spots, things of that nature.
To give the chemical time to work and do its job.
Absolutely. 6, test for color fastness. Most carpet these days, we're very fortunate, is very color fast.
How are you going to do that?
Well, we'll just simply put some of the spotter on a clean white towel, place it onto an inconspicuous area of the carpet, or more importantly, upholstery fabrics, and give it a good 10 minutes.
Just do your pre-test
to determine whether or not that material is going to transfer.
Okay.
7th, make minimum applications of spotter. drip apply from a flip-top spotting bottle. The chemist won't get quite as rich. Your company won't spend nearly as much money. Maybe there'll be enough profit for you to get a raise next year after everybody else does, I guess.
A little's okay, more's not always better.
That's right, exactly. Okay, and then rinse carefully. You know, the two basic causes of reoccurring spots come from two sources. Number one, we don't get all of the spotting contaminant out, especially if it sinks down into the backing material. Beverage stains are a good example of this, where we have a whole cup of coffee that's spilled on the carpet. We go over the surface, it disappears just like that. But in the drying process, that spot wicks back up. That's one of the causes of reappearing spots. The second one is leaving some of our spotting agents, particularly the non-volatile dry spotters, on the carpet, not breaking them down, not emulsifying the residues of our spotting agent so that they actually attract soil.
Non-volatile meaning that it doesn't self-evaporate.
Yes, it doesn't evaporate completely and quickly. And then, of course, the ninth principle of spotting is to dry the spot as rapidly as possible. Get it dry so that no one will be tracking over it and redepositing soil before causing it to look like the spot is coming back or reappearing. So those are the principles of spotting. Keep it simple, act quickly, know what the fiber content is, determine what the spot's components are, be patient, give it a little time, test for color fastness, make minimum applications of spotter, just what's necessary, rinse carefully, and then dry rapidly. Those are the principles of spotting. Now it's time to pause for a moment, talk a little bit about identifying different spots.
Okay.
Next thing we need to discuss, Jim, is how to identify these spots, how to determine what is actually there. And of course, there's 6 points under this principle. Number one, what's the appearance look like? A lot of times you can just look at a spot, its color, its texture, things like that, and it gives you some idea of what it might possibly be.
Spot's a spot, isn't it?
Well, there's a lot of difference. As a matter of fact, technically a spot is something that adds substance to the carpet. A stain is something that adds color to the carpet. But for all intents and purposes, we're just going to be using those terms interchangeably. We won't really distinguish between the two.
Okay.
But just look at it. What's it look like? Secondly, what's it feel like? You can genuinely feel the change in texture. Now here we have some latex paint on the carpet, and you can feel that there's a texture change there.
Yeah.
Some spots, such as the color-added spots that we have around in this vicinity, there really is not much of a change in texture, but you can feel the stiffness, the oiliness, the stickiness, the gumminess of certain types of spots.
Use your senses of what
right, the sense of touch there. Third is smell. What does the spot smell like? Little chocolate in the candy wrapper is going to smell much the same as the chocolate that's in the carpet there.
Touch, smell, you go first on some of these. I don't think I want to do all that.
You want to be real careful. There's a little dog running around the house on these chocolate spots here. Okay. So the sense of smell. And then, of course, the relative location of the spot. A red spot on the carpet by the vanity in the back bedroom.
Okay.
Probably going to be makeup or something of that nature. Similarly, certain little spots that match the color of the walls, paint right along the edge of the wall, probably going to be paint spots.
Okay.
And
TV where there's no color in the carpet from facial acne medicine? Or,
benzoyl peroxide might create a problem there. The acne medication that kids get on their hands, and they lean back and watch TV, resting the hands on the carpet, and all of a sudden you've got a bleached out area from that benzoyl peroxide. Of course, white spots in front of the refrigerator, milk, starchy substances, things like that. So the relative location. Probably the easiest thing to do is just simply ask the customer, lady, what is that you've got on your carpet? And she should tell you.
Do they always tell you the truth?
Well, yeah, usually they're pretty accurate about it because they've been concerned about that spot for some time. That's the mustard. I had a birthday party for the 8-year-old, and one of the kids came in here and just hosed down his hot dog and took a big bite, and the mustard came squirting out, and now I've got a mustard spot on my carpet. What can you do to get rid of it? Well, can you get mustard out? Well, that brings us around to the sixth principle. Don't guarantee it. Hand me that mustard bottle here, and let's see what it's got in it. Now, let's analyze the components. That's what I'm trying to say here when I say read the label. Right here it says that this contains vinegar. Can we get vinegar out of carpet? Yeah, probably going to be some acetic acid, and it's going to evaporate completely. Water is no problem. The ground up mustard seed is no problem either. It's a brown or grayish looking material. Salt, sure, we can dissolve salt with just a little bit of water and get that out. Most of the spices and the natural flavoring, but there's one other ingredient here I see by reading my label, and that's an ingredient called turmeric. Turmeric is a vegetable dye, a very strong dispersed dye. That's that yellow stuff that we Americans have to have in our mustard to call it mustard.
To make it appealing looking.
Right. In European countries, it's brown or gray. But here in the States, we've got to have it bright yellow. It's basic marketing here. So those are the 6 ways that we go about identifying spots. Let me summarize just real quickly. First of all, look at the appearance. What does it look like? Secondly, the touch, the feel. Third, the smell of the spot, if it has any smell at all. Okay, watch out there. All right. Fourth, want to look at the relative location of the spot. Fifth, simply ask the customer, what is that you've got on your carpet? And then sixth, read the labels.
Do your investigation. So
Right.
you know what
Those are
you're
the 6 basic principles for identifying different types of spots and stains. Okay, the next subject we need to discuss is methods of removal, Jim.
Okay, but before we get involved in this, shouldn't we be reading labels about these things?
Well, yeah, sure. Matter of fact, we mentioned that the last time, but in our book, Specialized Carpet Spotting, I'm glad you brought that up because it gives me a chance to talk about that a little bit more. But in this particular book, we've got an alphabetical listing of over 175 different types of common spots that are broken down according to their contents, and then of course we tell you what classification they fall in.
With
so
their
that you can-
contents.
Right,
That's in there.
with what's exactly is in there, so that you have some idea of how to remove them a little bit better.
So if we don't have the mustard bottle,
That's right.
it's in here.
You can glance
Okay.
at this and see what's there if you have that available. Okay, methods of removal. There are basically 6. Number 1, dry vacuum. We've already demonstrated
that
that.
one.
I think people can
Yeah.
see the importance of using that simple dry vacuuming technique to pull out all the excess that we possibly can. Secondly is solvent action. Now, a solvent is a substance that will dissolve another substance.
So it's not necessarily a dry cleaning compound. It's
No,
a
that's
dry
what most
cleaning
people
fluid.
think about when
That's
they...
the way I perceive it.
Yeah,
usually.
sure. And that's natural. Most of our audience probably will be the same way. When you hear the term solvent, you think of dry cleaning agents. But there are dry solvent spotters, which will dissolve a lot of oils and greases and gummy materials, things like that. And there are also water-based solvents.
Okay.
Water is the most common solvent on the face of the earth. It will dissolve more substances than anything else. Therefore, we have dry solvents. Our solvent action occurs on the dry side and on the wet side. The third method of spot removal we have is called lubrication and suspension. And this is for the insoluble soils, those types of soils and spotting contaminants that cannot be dissolved. For instance, carbon, pigment in copier toner or graphite, something of that nature. We can't really dissolve that material.
You can't
so we
break
wanna,
them down.
That's right. We can't break them down or emulsify them. So what we try to do is kind of get that fiber slick with our solvent. We slide the
pull it off.
insoluble material off, suspend it, and then blot it out in some manner a little bit later on. So lubrication and suspension is the third general removal method. The fourth is digestion. Digestion is used on persistent protein spots. Examples, blood, egg, milk, substances like that.
What do you mean digestion?
Well,
that goes on here.
Yes, that's right. It's probably going on in your stomach right now after that breakfast that you had. But digestion is taken care of by enzyme materials. Protein is not a readily soluble material, and it has to be broken down into simpler compounds by enzyme digesters. And we'll talk about how that works when we get around to using that particular chemical a little bit later on. All right, so digestion is the fourth method of removal for persistent protein spots. Now let me hasten to interject here that most protein spots can be gotten out with a little cool neutral detergent solution. Not too much of a problem.
Keep it simple.
Right, keep it simple. Start off with the cool neutral solutions, but the persistent ones, the ones that stay in the carpet, we may need to use a protein digester on. All right, the fifth method of removal is called chemical change. Now here we're using the strong acids, the reducing agents, the bleaching agents to take care of the color added spots. And then, of course, the sixth method of removal
Now,
is...
wait a minute, before you get, are we getting close to where I come in?
Yeah,
I
we
like
sure
this
are.
part.
We sure are.
You're making
we
this is all
guarantee.
too technical, and this is wearing me out. I can take care of anything with my tray here.
Yeah, but we can't go in and start slicing up people's carpet like that.
We can do a section on each one of these, and I assume sectioning is our last
I tell you,
list.
this is the kind of response I'd expect from a cutter rather than a cleaner. But realistically, yes, that is the final method of spot removal, what we call sectioning, using bonded inserts, things like that. And this is where your course comes in, where I think it's very important to attend a course on carpet repair and reinstallation to learn all the various techniques to handle water damage claims and various other things, but mainly to take care of those spots that we just simply cannot get otherwise. And I guarantee you, this is practical tape. This is not one of those where we use some polyester carpet or something like that. This is all on nylon we're working with, since nylon represents 75% of the market, and there are probably going to be some stains there that we just can't quite get out.
Well, I've certainly found some over the years I can't get out,
Well,
except till I get my tool belt on.
Sound like a normal cleaner. Our audience will be able to identify you there. So let me recap here real quickly. Methods of removal: first of all, dry vacuum. Secondly, apply solvent action to try to dissolve the spotting contaminant. Third, lubrication and suspension for the insoluble soils. Fourth, digestion for persistent protein spots. Fifth, chemical change for the color added spots. And sixth, the old cut and plug technique, sectioning the carpet, more appropriately termed. Okay, Jim, now that we've talked about the methods of removal, let's talk about some of the equipment that's necessary to take care of these spots and stains that we're going to be discussing. First thing we need is a carrying tray of some kind.
That's what we've
Something that's got
here.
a good solid plastic bottom so that if we have any leakage from the spotting bottles, it won't spill out onto the carpet.
Okay.
Number two, we need some good white towels, either some terry cloth towels such as we have here, or some paper towels, some heavy gauge wiper towels.
Why we use white?
White is important so that you can tell when you blot the spot and you see a transfer. For instance, I think I've still got a little bit of oil here that's a little bit wet. You see the difference there. As soon as we blot it, we can see that we're getting transfer. We know that we need to continue working that spot until we get no more transfer onto the clean white towel.
Okay.
All right?
What's next?
Third is a tamping brush. Now note that this is a white nylon bristle tamping brush too. We want to be able to see if we have any contamination on the brush head before we actually begin, and it's always used in a tamping motion, just like this. Never a scrubbing motion back and forth. Obviously that's going to fray the yarns.
Distort your face yarn.
So just tamping, and gentle tamping motion is all that's necessary too. Don't get in there and just beat it to death. That's just not necessary.
Okay.
Fourth item that we need is a bone spatula.
I thought they were bone scrapers.
Yeah, well, but we never scrape our customers' delicate carpet fibers, right? So let's call it a bone spatula.
Okay.
All right. Very nice little rounded end for providing light general agitation and for scooping out some types of spotting material, some types of spotting agents that we'll be applying to those spots.
What else we got in here?
Fifth, we need some duckbill napping shears.
Well,
for those spots that aren't really spots at all, but rather are cigarette burns or ash burns from the fireplaces, things like that. Maybe even for trimming off some dye transfer stains onto the surface or the tips of the yarns. Might be a little easier to remove it that way.
Okay.
All right, six, flip-top spotting bottles. Very important to have some that have that flip-top spout so that we can drip apply our spotter onto the carpet just with minimal quantities. Just that amount that's necessary to do the job and no more. So flip-top.
That controls your flow.
That's right. Flip-top spotting bottles. Very, very important there. All right, seventh would be a pH test kit.
Okay.
We've got a nice little test kit here. This is where the pH paper is located, but this particular test kit goes from 0 to 13. Gives us an idea of what the pH of our spotting agents are, and we can use it to test the pH of the spotting material, the contaminant, while it's still in the bottle. Doesn't really do too much good to test the pH of the spot on the carpet because that changes over a period of time.
Okay.
All right, eighth, occasionally it's necessary for us to have a trigger sprayer.
Okay.
And those little trigger sprayers are used when we have a general application of spotting agent that has to take place over a wider area. All right, this is what our trigger sprayer looks like. We simply mix up our spotting solution into the trigger sprayer and spray it onto the area of discoloration. Ninth, we need some cotton swabs. Now this is for, yes, your famous Q-tip brand cotton swabs, or other brands as well. Cotton swabs are used for gentle pinpoint application of the spotters directly to the vicinity of the color-added spots usually.
Just for absorption.
Right, right.
Well,
Now,
a spot that little, why would you even worry about it?
well, sometimes it's necessary to get just to the spot without taking the color out of the carpet itself. So that can be important. Now, a couple of optional items. I have an iron here that's used to, of course, to accelerate different types of spotting agents, especially our red stain removers. We might want to use it in that context to get out wax, to melt the wax and absorb it into a towel or paper material. So that might be important as well. And then the last item that we have is our machinery itself, the equipment that we use, and we've got a typical extraction unit that's located right over here. This particular device enables us to flush the suspended residue out of the carpet. This is the capability that we have that the customer doesn't have, and this is why a professional is so much more preferred to remove spots and stains than in-home spotting.
Now this is something you'd use your neutral rinse in, or your...
That's right, or just a little plain water in many cases to flush out the spot once it's been suspended by whatever agent we happen to be using. Okay, quick summary. Carrying tray, towels, tamping brush, our bone spatula, our napping shears, the flip-top spotting bottles, the pH test kit, the trigger sprayer, and the cotton swabs, all carried in the kit itself. Optional equipment might include the trigger sprayer, the iron, and of course our extraction unit. And of course don't forget your measuring cup. That's another item that can be very important for making sure that we have proper measurement of the different chemicals that we'll be using. Okay, I think that covers our equipment, so let's next take a look at our cleaning, our chemical agents. All right, the next thing we're going to discuss is the required chemicals that are necessary for providing all kinds of spot removal techniques. Now, we're not going to talk about all the individual chemicals at this point. We're going to discuss those a little later. All I want to do is just to provide an elaboration and enumeration of the different types of spotters that we may need. Now, first of all, we're going to start off on the dry side, and there are two spotters that we need there. Number one, we need a volatile dry spotter, or a VDS. Volatile simply means that the spotting agent is going to evaporate quickly and completely. So it's highly volatile. Number two, we need a non-volatile agent. The volatile agent is for the light oils. Let's just put them out here. We'll line them up side by side. The volatile agents for the light oils, the greases, tars. The non-volatile for the heavy paints and the more persistent oil-based spots. All right.
This one has to be neutralized or rinsed. The non-volatile.
Well, yes, it often does leave a residue and has to be rinsed or broken down, emulsified with our volatile spotter. Okay, now let's get those two out of the way and let's talk about the wet side spotter. There are three there that we have to talk about. Number one, we need a neutral detergent solution, a neutral spotter that allows us to take care of just general soiling. Number two, we have an alkaline spotter, a little more aggressively built alkaline solution that takes care of a lot of the different types of food spots. Three, we have an acid spotter, basically for tannin spots, coffee, tea, cola. It's a weak vegetable dye that's included in a lot of the different types of soft drinks and coffee, tea, things like that. Okay, those take care of the three wet side spotters. All right, beyond that, we then have a rust removing agent, some type of rust remover. This is either going to be hydrofluoric acid, an aggressive rust remover, or oxalic acid. An 8% solution of oxalic makes an excellent rust remover. It works a little slower than the hydrofluoric that we'll be talking about momentarily, but it does do a good job on rust, and it's a little safer than the hydrofluoric. All right, next we have a protein digester, or an enzyme digester. All right, that's in our yellow bottle there. The enzyme digester is for those persistent protein spots that we have to deal with from time to time. The blood, egg, milk, type situations, the ones that have been around for a while and have dried out. All right, and then the next agent that we have is our reducing agent, our stripper as it's sometimes called. The reducing agent is for those color-added spots that have to have a little more aggressive spotting applied to them. So those are the basic chemicals that we need: 2 dry side spotters, 3 wet side spotters, a rust remover, an enzyme digester, and of course a color removing agent.
Well,
now you'll notice that I've got a couple of other spotters there too.
I saw these down here.
If you'll pull those out for me. First of all, I have a little bit of nail polish remover. This is just acetone. Now, I have this in my kit because I know what I'm doing. Acetone will work a little more aggressively on some of the nail polish and synthetic resins. However, if I ever use that on acetate fiber, guess what happens?
I would assume it probably dissolves it.
No, it always gets the spot out, but it leaves a gaping hole right there in the middle of the fabric. So for those of you who clean both upholstery and carpet, if you use this on carpet, get it out of your kit before you start working upholstery, because it could be very dangerous in that context, unless you like the looks of that sofa in your living room.
In your
of course.
home, I understand.
Right. The last one that we have here is a 70% solution of isopropyl alcohol. And the isopropyl alcohol solution is commonly found just about anywhere. It's the typical rubbing alcohol that you find at various stores all over the United States, curb stores, grocery stores, drug stores, places like that. But there's just nothing that works any better on ballpoint pen ink than the isopropyl alcohol does. So I do tend to carry a little bit of that around.
How about friction in isopropyl alcohol? Any problem with flash point on it?
Well, of course, isopropyl is very flammable. However, it's not something you need to worry about because it's 70% solution. It's got a lot of water in it. And in the context of spotting, it's just not generally going to be a problem with flammability. Obviously, we'd never smoke or use it near an open flame anyway. Okay, well, that takes care of the contents of this spotting kit.
Well, it seems like it's got everything you need in this.
Well, it really does. And all the spotting kits, incidentally, are basically the same.
Okay. You mean you're even this one down on the other end?
Yeah, this one down here on the end
well, it looks bigger.
It does
look bigger, better.
This is the one that's made by ChemSpec, and it's an excellent spotting kit. But when you look at all these bottles, sometimes it looks real confusing. But let me just show you that really we've got the same basic kind of thing. We've got a volatile spotter right here. We've got a non-volatile spotter, or a paint, oil, and grease remover. Those are the 2 dry side spotters that I talked about. On the wet side, we've got 3. We've got a neutral, we've got an alkaline. Excuse me, I got the wrong one in the wrong place here. I'll get back to that. We've got a neutral, an alkaline, and an acid spotter. Those 3. Then we've got a rust remover that we talked about. And let's see, we've got our digester, and we've got our reducer. Those are the basics that we had in the other kit. Now, this particular spotting kit comes with a little bottle that you can mix up your reducing agent in. Comes in with a little bottle for the digesters. That's no problem. It's got a little bottle for rinse water. Don't be confused by that. And it's got some aerosol chewing gum remover. This particular product is used to freeze the chewing gum, so it would really fall in the class sort of with your volatile spotter. And it has one other spotter as well. It's called a wet solvent. There are, the wet solvent is just particularly effective on animal and vegetable oils in the arm and headrest areas of upholstery or some types of oily spots. But basically there's not really anything that you can't get with these 2. This one just supplements and makes it a little bit faster.
Okay.
So realistically, same basic things. You've got some towels, you've got a spotting brush, you've got a bone spatula, you've got some cotton swabs, you've got a pH test kit, a spoon for spooning up some excess material that you find on the carpet. So there's really nothing complicated about it. That's the point I'm trying to make. All the spotting kits generally will have the same kinds of chemicals on them. So quick summary: 2 dry side spotters, volatile, non-volatile. 3 wet side spotters, neutral, alkaline, acid. Then we've got the rust remover, we've got the digester, and we have a reducing agent for the color added spots, and that's all they have.
So when do we get to use these?
We're going to use them coming up next.
Good.
Jim, the first spotter we're going to talk about this morning is the volatile dry spotter on the dry side. And we've got a few spots here that should respond to this particular spotter.
Okay.
This is the one that's most frequently used. I guess we use more of this on our trucks than virtually any other spotter that we have available. It's used on a variety of different types of spots, and my little chart here brings us out, so I'll just list them off here. Light oils, grease, tar, asphalt, carbon, paper that gets ground into carpet in banks and other financial institutions, graphite, typewriter correction fluid, we have some of that on the carpet here. Copier toner, we have some of that on the carpet here. Some of the marking pen inks, ballpoint pen inks, adhesives, candle wax, chewing gum, just a whole variety of different spots.
That's a nice chart. That slide right in your pocket or whatever one of them.
That's the whole purpose behind it. We've got several of them here. Let me identify them as we go down the line here. We've got some used motor oil, first of all, that has a lot of the carbon in it. This contains, of course, both soluble and insoluble materials. We have here some of our axle grease, literally is what it is. Some of the correction fluid, typewriter correction fluid, some tar. Then we have some copier toner, some chewing gum, and some ballpoint pen ink, and we'll see how this responds to all of those particular techniques.
Works on these.
Yeah, now as I'm going through, watch real closely the techniques, the amount of agitation that I provide with tamping action, and a variety of other things. Let's start off with one of the easy ones. Here's our motor oil. Now the first thing is we want to do, of course, is to blot it. We've already done a little bit of that, but let's blot the spot real carefully and bring out all that we possibly can. That's always a good idea to get rid of the excess. Do it the simple way.
This is almost like pre-vacuuming.
That's right. And then we're going to go ahead and apply our spotter. Just drip apply it right onto the spot, making sure that we've got a nice clean spotting brush. We'll do a little bit of tamping. Now notice I'm not beating it to death.
Okay.
Distortion of the carpet yarns is one of the worst things that carpet cleaners do.
You're just driving the chemical down into it.
That's right.
Then
Just
we blot, right?
Yes, blot now. See what kind of transfer you're getting to that clean white towel. And as you can see, some is coming out.
Not as dark as the first, is it?
All right, that's right, because we're getting it out. We're getting it diluted. And as you can see, the spot is already responding. A little bit of tamping action. And then we blot again.
We usually carpet cleaners, we just rub it around.
Yeah,
Spread it out on the carpet layers.
I'm afraid that's the reason for this tape. Okay, and it pretty much looks like we've gotten it. Now that spot has still got to dry a little bit. We might want to vacuum over it real quickly. Hit the switch. And if we're concerned about any residue remaining in that spot, if I can find it, I think it's right here, I'll use a little bit of my alkaline spotter just to come back, apply a little of the alkaline spotter onto it, tamp lightly. Now that's after everything that is oily and greasy has been removed.
Okay.
Go ahead and tamp, blot, and then I'll rinse.
Not much transfer.
All gone. Now, let's take a look at our axle grease. This is the second one. And the first thing we want to do is take our spatula and go ahead and lift off all the excess that we can get to. You see all that excess that we have here? That's got to go. So I'll wipe it onto my towel, see if I can pick up any more. There's just no need in taking a lot of time and effort on this excess axle grease here if it's not necessary. And of course, all sorts of greasy spots respond in that same manner. All right, get me a clean portion of the towel there.
Okay.
Let's see. Now it's time to apply my volatile spotter. Go ahead and place it onto the spot, tamp it in a little bit. Some gentle tamping action. I see it starting to spread out a little bit. That indicates to me that I'm breaking it up pretty well.
Now, when you're making just a very small application, how will that affect the secondary backing primary that's laminated together?
Well, you have to be very cautious about that because it will affect it over a period of time. We don't want to get the excess spotter down into the backing materials without blotting it out and vacuuming it out too, I might add. Okay, we still have a little bit of discoloration. I'm not sure that the camera is sensitive enough to show that up, but you and I can see it, so we'll go back and apply just a little bit more spotter, a little more tamping action. Now look at my brush here. I've got some of that yellow grease.
You can see the yellow in there.
That's right. I'll go ahead and wipe it off too. Try to keep my brush as clean as possible as I'm going through this spotting activity. A little bit more tamping. And then, of course, we'll blot that out as well. Select a clean surface on my towel, and let's give it some good hard blotting action at this point. Still a little bit more transferring. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Now let's vacuum that out. Now, go ahead. You can go ahead vacuum. So that's pretty much gotten that one. Now let's try a little bit on the typewriter correction fluid. As you noticed during our little break there, I went ahead and applied a little bit to the copier toner because it takes a little bit to break that stuff up.
It's like we talked about the other day about dwell time. It needs that time to do its job.
Just a little bit more there on some of those areas that are the most. Now notice I'm not giving it a hard tamping action.
I always
either.
thought you were supposed to
just beat it to death.
give it a good whack and drive the chemical down into the fiber.
No, that's not the idea at all. If you do that, in fact, what you'll wind up doing is fraying those yarns, affecting the twist, a little bit of everything. So it's very important to be gentle here.
Well, definitely in the flooring business, we see a lot of facial distortion. Mm-hmm. You know, it's very common for the twist to work itself backwards or get a little bit of traffic on it.
See, you can continue to apply the tamping action and blotting action for quite some time if you're gentle. But if you just wail away at it, then you'll have problems.
This is the part you say be patient.
That's right. That's where the patience comes in.
We can't get in any hurry.
Okay, one more time. A little bit more tamping action. A little bit of blotting. Pick up all my volatile spotter. And most of it looks like it's gone. Let's go ahead and vacuum that out. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and pre-treat this tar because it takes a little effort.
The vacuuming is just a precaution or a help to advance the drying situation because being a volatile dry solvent, it should self-evaporate according to theory, right?
And it will.
But anytime we can expedite the drying, why, everything's better off.
Sure right. And it also prevents that spot from spreading. Now, if you'll take a look at this one, look what's on my brush. I can see that I'm transferring quite a bit, but there's quite a bit of spotting agent going on to my brush. Let's blot this one time first. And before I go back to the spot, I also need to clean off my brush bristles just a little bit. At least as best I can, I'll clean them off to make sure. You see how much is transferring out? And you see that we are starting to get some result from the tar. A little more spotter, a little more tamping. And we should blot that out.
So just a matter of time, this will come out.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let you continue to work on that particular spot.
Sure.
Looks like we're getting some result there.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of the spotter on my chewing gum spot here. Just soak that down a little bit. And we'll continue to tamp away on the paint spotted well. Now, what's happening on the chewing gum spot is that we are starting to change the composition of the chewing gum, to degrease it a little bit, to remove some of the stickier latex components so that we'll be able to pull it out, lift it off the carpet surface, hopefully. Now this may not...
You're going to lift this one off. I thought that's what the can down there with chewing gum remover
Well,
was for.
you can do that. You can freeze it, but I want to show, since a lot of cleaners don't have the freezing compound, what I wanted to show, if we can get as much of a close-up on that as possible,
Yeah.
well, what I wanted to show was that with the volatile spotter, you can often reach underneath with your spatula, and you can separate the gum from the yarns. If you're careful, take your time, be patient, don't try to pull it all off at once.
Well, things do change.
Well,
It's been a while since I've spent a great deal of time re-educating myself
Now,
on these.
Since you brought that up, let me go ahead and show you what happens when you use the freezing compound.
Is that like a Freon?
No, it's not Freon anymore. They're using different types.
Well, that's quite a blast, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We simply freeze that chewing gum, and that also helps it just pop right up. You can break it up. See how hard and brittle it is now?
Yeah.
And I can just lift that right out. Still a little gummy from my volatile spotter. And I've got just a little bit left here. But essentially we do freeze it, break it up.
Well, this looks like when we're done, I'll be able to roll this back up and put it in the remnant bin, Jeff. Or are we going to have some that we may not be able to get out, you suppose?
Well, we'll see as time progresses. All right, now that we've taken care of that, the last thing we want to do, still working on our, last thing I want to do is come back, put on a little bit of my volatile spotter, tamp it. Yeah, I'm getting a little transfer from my tar there. This tar is not giving up easily, but it's coming.
That's pretty important when you use that chewing gum remover to make sure you get enough time spent to actually freeze it, isn't it?
Yes. Takes just a second for it to actually freeze through. But it works very nicely if you have that type of material. Also, some of those citrus solvents that are on the market work very well in this context. All right, we've gotten the chewing gum out very nicely.
What do we got up here on the other two?
Got a little-
Ballpoint ink, and what's the other one?
Got a little copier toner.
Oh, okay.
I think it's about time for us to switch claws. We've about gotten this one saturated, so we'll lay this one aside, go back to another one. All right, you can see that we're making good progress on our tar spot now.
Yeah.
So let's
one's pretty well
go ahead and give this a little bit of effort. This is the copier toner, that old black stuff. Make a good saturation application. Tamp it.
What other precautions do you need to be aware of when you work with a volatile dry solvent?
Well, there's several of them that you need to be concerned about. First place, if I get a lot of volatile dry solvent onto this cloth, see what I'm getting there, and I put that cloth in my back pocket, especially on a hot summer day, it might be nice and cool and comfortable. But by the end of the day, walking around with that cloth in my pocket, it's eventually going to degrease my skin, and from that point on, I'll become very productive for the remainder of the week.
So
I won't be able to sit down with the blisters on my backside. So yes, it does degrease your skin. Usually it just dries out your fingernails, cracks your cuticles, things like that. But you have to be cautious there. All right. And as you can see, my copier toner is coming out pretty well. Let's vacuum this real quickly. A little bit more. Tap it in. And again, it takes patience. Now, because of time constraints, we won't be able to get all of these spots out perfectly. Just simply isn't time for us to see all of that.
Yeah.
But as you can see, as we continue to apply the steps and work it in real carefully, we're getting more and more response from the spot. Now, once we have gotten the majority of the spot out, again, it's time to come back with our alkaline spotter, work the area carefully. This is the ammoniated spotter that we'll be using on the food spots here in a moment.
Okay.
Go ahead and tamp it in. Again, this is the capability that we have that our customer simply does not have. I'm going to do the same thing on my toner spot. Just saturate that area with my volatile spotter. Tamp it in.
You're following up with an alkaline detergent spotter.
That's right.
Doing here.
That's right. My alkaline detergent solution. Now I'm ready to rinse. Very lightly. I'm not putting any pressure on that hand tool. I want to get a nice flow of hot water through the yarns that I'm trying to clean. Okay. That one's taken care of.
Yep.
Do the same thing over here. Now watch the activity on that head. Very lightly.
You're just gliding across the top
Stop stroking.
of the yarn fiber, aren't you?
Not pushing at all, because if I push, I'm likely to get into a distortion problem. All right.
Well, those look pretty good.
Last one we've got is an ink spot down here. Now this is ballpoint pen ink. I'm going to try the volatile spotter. I wipe off my spotting brush, trying to keep it clean as I go. I tamp it. I blot it.
And this is where you
And
might...
as you can see, I'm getting some transfer.
This is where you might want to pull out your isopropyl alcohol, right?
There's nothing that's going to work quite as well as the isopropyl alcohol on this spot, so I'll go ahead and put the isopropyl on there. Tamp it. See immediately how it spreads out.
Oh yeah, it's just taking off.
It just works a lot faster. I don't want to take anything away from our suppliers. And indeed, some of our suppliers in the industry will combine within their volatile spotter some of the alcohol.
Now, is this a product that you'd find in some of the hairsprays that they always say are so effective?
Yeah, that's right.
Household remedies, so to speak.
That's a heck of an expensive way to do business on the carpet, because it's only the alcohol that makes the hairspray so fast drying that does the job for us. Okay. Now, if I've got a little residual there, if you'll hit my vacuum. Rinse out the excess and we're all set. So this demonstrates the removal of the vast majority of the spots
that
we've talked about there, and simple as that. That's one of our easiest ones and most effective on a variety of different spots. It's the technique that's important here. Now we'll go from here on to our non-volatile dry spotters and start seeing what we can accomplish with that particular spotter as well.
Okay.
Before we start talking about the spots that remove with the non-volatile solvent, I want to bring out a couple of precautions. As we work these spots with our volatile spotter, it's important to note that there are certain things that can take place if we're not careful about how much spotter we're putting on. For example, here I have some high-density foam back carpet, and if I put some of my volatile spotter on there, you can see immediately how it starts to swell up the backing material there. Now, if we're working this in that swollen state, it will damage it at some point in time, so we have to be very cautious about that. Secondly, I have a piece of loop pile carpet here, and as you can see, these loops are very difficult for me to pull out, almost impossible. However, all I've got to do is just put on a little bit of my volatile solvent in that area, and watch what happens. Once I give them just a little bit of chance to soak in, then all of a sudden everything just comes right on out very easily. So what's happening is that we're dissolving. Now, it went down to the point at which I applied it, and then it stopped right there, and it becomes hard again. What happens is those backing adhesives get loosened up a little bit. Now, the volatile solvent doesn't harm them permanently. Once it dries, then you don't have any permanent damage that takes place. The latex will regain its strength, but we must be careful. Same thing is true with our non-volatile solvent. One of the precautions that we have here is the fact that it will harm
you can feel the
backing materials.
You can feel the bump on the back of the
this rubber. Definitely. Now, what we have here on the carpet, several different spots, 5 in fact. We have some latex paint, we have some oil-based paint, we have some lipsticks, some shoe polish, and some nail polish. Now I've already gone ahead and treated these, pre-treated these, because spots like these might take 30 minutes to get out,
Okay.
Jim. So we've pre-treated those, tamped them a little bit, and they're already starting to loosen up so that our audience won't have to sit there and just watch me go through for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
But I'm simply going to apply,
This is on latex paint.
do a little tamping.
And
That's
you put
correct.
your non-volatile dry solvent on first.
Well, initially I just went right ahead with my non-volatile solvent, applied it, tamp it a little bit. Now let's see if we're loosening it up. If you'll blot it a little bit.
Sure. It has a very noticeable odor or a fragrance. What is that?
That's right. Now let's see here. You see how we're already starting to get our transfer there. So we'll continue to apply. The odor that you're smelling smells sort of like bananas, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's called amyl acetate. Amyl acetate is used on synthetic resins. It's safer than acetone. And by the way, examples of synthetic resins include airplane glue, nail polish, acrylic paint, things like that. But that's what you're smelling there, the amyl acetate. All right, we continue to apply, continue to tamp gently.
Now we'll do the same thing when we head up to do the lipstick. Is that the first?
Well, we're sure hoping it's going to do that way.
Okay. Just about gone.
All right. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start working on our oil-based paint here in the carpet.
That was the oil base.
Let's tamp that, let's blot that particular one and see what happens. Yep, it's starting to move. Now from there, it's just a question of how much time. And I'm really over applying the solvent in the interest of the time factor.
Sure.
Trying to speed things up a little bit here. And realistically, if I had more time, I'd want to drip apply it. What I usually do with my towel, too, my spotting towel, is try to start at one edge and work my way across with the blotting procedure. Okay, got a little transfer, move over to a clean area.
In other words, you're telling me not only time, but a little bit of organization on the towel.
Yeah, that's right.
Huh?
If you're not organized, and just lean it back over like that, you can leave it lying right there on the carpet if you'd like. That's all in the world it takes.
What was the spot? Which spot we heading to next?
Let's try a little bit of shoe polish next.
I don't have.
See
You know,
what
I'm
that
not a
one
real
does.
patient person.
Yeah, me either.
The cookie cutter will do this real quick. You know?
Knowing you'd already be into the cut and plug mode.
Yeah, I probably
This is
would.
some brown shoe polish. Let's blot that and see what we're accomplishing. Yep, that's coming along real nicely. Apply, tamp, and blot. Shoe polish contains oils and waxes, and of course quite a bit of pigment to give it its color. That's coming out real nicely.
Yeah.
Let's see, one more time. While you're blotting that one, I'll go ahead and hit this one once again. That oil-based paint's
Kind of a burger.
quite of
isn't
a
it?
problem,
Yeah.
right? But that's what I mean by the patience factor. Probably take 10 minutes to take out a spot like this. And realistically, you should ask yourself if it's more realistic. We're still getting transfer, so that means we'll continue to march.
Well, even though I am a promoter of doing a nice quick section, there is a little bit of a phobia about cutting the carpet open, and you know you have to be skilled and trained. Not everybody's going to cut into it. You might make it worse than it was before you
True.
started. So this way you don't have any distortion in the fiber or anything.
Lipstick is what I'm working on here. Now, let's get a clean area of our cloth and do a little blotting.
Okay, and do that.
Looks like the lipstick's responding pretty well, too.
Bottom half. Yeah.
All right, so while we've got it moving, application, tamping, and blotting.
Okay.
All right. right back to my oil-based paint one more time.
Okay.
While you're doing that, I'll hit my lipstick once more since we're getting the majority of that out now. It's looking a lot better. And I think the audience will get the right impression. From there, it's just a matter of time before we get all of this out. All right, now while you're on this one, I'm going to make an application onto my nail polish. All right, now I've got, on my nail polish, I've got, I'm using the volatile, non-volatile spotter, which has amyl acetate in it. And it's starting to break it up pretty well. Okay. Getting pretty good result there. So we'll just continue with the same spotter.
Now, being a non-volatile dry solvent, we have to neutralize or flush this, or
Yes. In fact, each one of these, just a little bit more and we'll have it. Let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. Got one little piece right there on the end.
I think that'd be a job for a napping shears if that was me.
That might be a good idea.
I'll snip that one off.
All right. Now, as is the case with all of these, we'd want to come back with our volatile spotter. Having used our non-volatile, we want to come back with our volatile spotter just in the event that we have any residue left. So we tamp this, blot it.
Blot. And then we would just go through all of them the same way.
Yeah, same thing with each one of them. That removes any residue that might possibly attract any degree of soiling whatsoever and might create a problem for us somewhere down the line.
Well, that looks easy enough.
Okay, we'll continue to work on these and get the last remaining residue. I think as far as the camera is concerned, we probably can see that the vast majority of these spots have been removed.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking a whole lot better. There's a little residue there, but for the sake of time, we just simply will have to move on to something else. But
what is
I think that gives us an illustration. Well, the next thing is our food spots. So we'll take a pause here, and then we'll come right back and hit those. Okay, Jim, as you can see, we've gotten some pretty good results here using our volatile dry spotters on the various spots in this area, our non-volatile dry spotters. All of those have responded very well, even though they could have used a little more time and patience, but I think we've gotten the job done pretty nicely here. It's time to turn our attention to the spots and stains that we can probably take care of with our alkaline spotting solution. So if you'll get our alkaline agent over there, let's take a look at what we've got. First of all, we've got some chocolate here, chocolate, candy, various types, even some of your ice cream, things like that would correspond to this spot. I've got some green felt tip marking pen here on the carpet, which is something else that kids will often get onto carpet. And then we've got a little blob of ketchup here too. So let's see what we can get done with those. I'm going to start off with the chocolate here, and the first thing we're going to do is try to break up the spot a little bit. As you can see, we've got some gummy goo there, and if you'll get your vacuum, we'll see what we can get rid of with the vacuuming process. Now you'll notice as I'm vacuuming, I'm not actually putting the vacuum down on the carpet.
Just kind of tilting it up the side, aren't you?
That's right, so that I can pull out the excess. Now look how the size of that spot is diminishing as we go over it and just try to pull out all that excess with just the dry vacuuming procedure. All right, so it's considerably smaller. Now, using my volatile spotter, or excuse me, my alkaline detergent solution, I'll simply saturate that particular area. I'll tamp it a little bit, start breaking things up.
Now, I see this has got a pH of 10.5. Is there a special reason that we're at 10.5? Or?
Well, alkalines, the reason is because it's got ammonia in it. The alkaline detergent solution contains surfactants, surface active agents, or detergents sometimes called. It contains an alkaline builder called ammonia, and it contains a glycol solvent, which is particularly effective on animal and vegetable oils, which we have in food spots.
Okay.
All right. As I work this a little bit, I see that my chocolate is becoming suspended. It's breaking up a little. And now I'm going to flush it. We don't have to do as much blotting with this particular method. A little bit of lofting, letting the air flow through the carpet, and we're all done there. So getting it uniformly suspended, breaking up the crusty portion, vacuuming that out, getting it uniformly suspended with our alkaline spotter, and then bringing it right on out. So we've got that one taken care of. Next is our marking pen. Yeah, that magic marker, if you will. And I'm going to apply my spotting agent. Make sure my brush is clean. Don't put any more chocolate in that area with the magic marker. It's bad enough with a magic marker there. And as I tamp, I can see it's breaking up a little bit for me. So I'll apply just a little bit more.
Now, does it do, is any advantage to warm the alkaline spotter?
It might be, but I'm using a warm solution to rinse it out. Okay. It's not very practical to warm it, I guess, is the point that should be made here. Now, I can blot this, of course, but since I'm already working on the wet side, there's no real advantage unless I just don't have a machine hooked up. Okay, let's go ahead and extract this.
What kind of water temperature are you running? Do we have the machine set on anything particular?
In this case, it's pretty warm. We've got the heat on up there because temperature does tend to excite any chemical reaction. One more time. I'll apply my spotter, tamp it in. And then I'll rinse it out.
It doesn't necessitate a lot of pressure either from your water mist, does it? I mean, you don't have to blast the spot of the stain out.
Certainly not. Now, if I were going to be cleaning the carpet, I'd go ahead and remove and blot what I could, and then I'd come back and just go through the normal cleaning procedure in order to take care of what little bit of residual is there. All right, now, as far as our ketchup is concerned, got a good blob here on the carpet, so I'm going to take my towel. I'm going to scoop up all the excess that I can. Some of it's getting a little gummy now.
I thought we were able to, you know, in the floor covering business, we're just supposed to be able to wipe this up with a sponge, all these new carpets. How come we're going through all this?
Well, this is the stain-resistant carpet, of course, that we're working with here, except in one particular area, and I'll show you where we're going to be using that. In this case, I'm going to use a neutral spotter instead of my alkaline spotter, see if I can't get this out. In fact, when you're dealing with stain-resistant carpet, it's probably a good idea to use
Start with your neutral.
Almost nothing but your neutral spotter. Give it a good saturation application. Do a little bit of tamping to break things up. The less aggressive you get, the less damage you're going to do to the carpet. All right, I'm going to vacuum this off real quickly. Just a little vacuuming. I've got a couple of more places. I have stain-resistant carpet in my home. It's a light blue color. And virtually everything that's gotten on that carpet, including diarrhea from puppies and makeup from my two daughters and just everything else that we've gotten on it, I've been able to take out with just just a neutral spotter. So no particular problem there. Let's see, one or two little places there where still have a little bit of spotting agent.
Of course, what you're going to run into is possibly, you know, stain resistors that have been maybe cleaned by someone who removes some of the protective floor chemical, and then the area becomes vulnerable for permanent spotting.
Sure. That's why it's necessary for us to reapply those things. you see how nicely all of those have responded.
Sure.
I've been into many homes where consumers have tried to remove different types of spots. The one advantage that I have that they don't have, however, is the extraction unit, with the ability to be able to flush out the suspended contaminant.
And the heater.
And the heat and the water to accelerate the chemical activity. Yes, all of that. So these are the spots that we take care of with our alkaline detergent solution. Next we'll be discussing the spots that respond best to a slightly acid solution, the tannin spots. Right. So we'll take a look at those in just a moment. Next spot we're going to talk about is the tannin spot, the kind of weak vegetable dye that we find in coffee, tea, cola, materials of that nature. Now there are two types of acid spotters that we can use on this type of spot. First of all, we can use the acetic acid material, acid spotter, which is found primarily in white vinegar. Most of the white vinegar that you find out there on the market that you can buy at grocery stores and drugstores and what have you is a 5% acetic acid solution. However, it has the disadvantage of having a substantial odor that goes along with it.
Well, that's for
All
sure.
you got to do is just open it up and give it a sniff, and you'll find real quickly that this is not the kind of thing that you want to be spreading around the customer's home. Very sharp, pungent odor. All right. So, for that reason, the formulators in our industry have given us general formula acid spotters that do without that smell that we generally have to deal with acetic acid. Non-odorous and still as effective. It gets the job done. Contains some citric acid, some acetic acid, maybe even a little bit of phosphoric acid. Okay, now I've got 3 spots on our carpet here. I've got a little bit of coffee, I've got some tea, and I've got some cola there that you can barely see because it blends in with the carpet a little bit. But this is some real strong coffee here. I'm going to give you some suggestions for getting rid of it. We'll start off with our acid spotter. Just simply apply it to the coffee, nice and liberally in this case, to get rid of it.
And you still tamp?
Yeah, do a little bit of tamping. And it breaks up, as you'll see, it breaks up pretty quickly and pretty easily.
It's decaf?
No, I think this is some high test. All right, starting to break up.
These wouldn't just flush out with normal, hot...
They very well may. They very well may. Usually, in fact, I don't worry too much about coffee spots. The point I want to illustrate here is that a weak vegetable dye like tannin does respond very nicely to our acid spotter. All right. Also, you've got to concern yourself with the amount of contaminant that's there. Oftentimes, you'll have a lot of the spotting material that's in the backing of the carpet that extends well below the face yarns. You can't see it there. So if you just go over this real quickly without any kind of specialized spotting at all to break it up and suspend it first, then you'll wind up with that spot wicking up and reappearing a little later on. Okay, now that I've gotten it suspended, let's go ahead and extract it out.
Water on it.
To get down to the base, all the way into that primary backing where I know there's some residual staining material. I'm going to get all of that out that I possibly can. And I'll come back and vacuum out my excess and flush once again.
Now, what's the absorption rate for nylon? I've forgotten. I know olefin is very, very minimal.
That's right. Olefin, polyester, and acrylic absorb very little, and you don't have to worry too much about any residual staining at all with those 3. Nylon absorbs anywhere from 4 to 7% of its weight in moisture. It's actually the moisture regain coefficient. Let me try just a little bit of a neutral spotter here because I feel like I can see just a little bit of a brownish stain remaining. Now, nylon absorbs something like 4 to 7% depending on the type. Type 6 around 4%, type 6 around 7%. of its weight and moisture is regained from a non-humid situation. Now what that means to us is that it's going to absorb more of the staining material too.
Sure.
Wool is particularly bad about this. Let me flush this and see if we've gotten all the residual out.
Seems to be coming out pretty good now.
Yeah, I think we've got it at this point. All right, now, if there is any little bit of residual left, however, there are two things you can do, and this is particularly important when you're dealing with coffee stains on wool. We've had to deal with a lot of this in major motels where nice hotels where they put a lot of wool down. And the thing that you do when you have any residual staining is come back with a 3% solution of hydrogen peroxide. I think we have a container that illustrates what this is all about.
Yeah, but I think this one says 6% on it, doesn't
Yes,
it?
hydrogen peroxide is one that is a product we'll be discussing a little later in our special agent category. This happens to be 20 volume or 6% peroxide. We would cut this half with water in order to be able to use it effectively. But if you have any residual coffee stains left, particularly on wool carpet, mix up a 3% solution of hydrogen peroxide, mist that area. You don't have to apply it real heavily, and in a very short period of time you'll have it taken care of. All right, next is our tea stain. We'll go ahead and hit that with a little bit of our acid spotter. Tamp it some more.
And this is a pH of 4 on this one, right?
Right, pH is 4. That's what makes it an acid.
Why wouldn't you use a pH of 3? That's too strong, or
well, most of
too mild?
most of your spotters need to be in a range that's about 5.5 to 8.
Okay.
That happens to be the pH range that the Wool Bureau recommends for wool carpet, which is one of the more delicate fibers we'll be dealing with.
Well, that one's coming right out.
Yeah. Again, because the spot may go all the way back into the carpet, I'm going to saturate it. I'm going to flood it. Get it nice and wet. Otherwise, that spot may be returning on me. Tamp it a little bit.
If you're going to be saturating them quite like that, wouldn't it be wise to check the secondary backing in case it would happen to be a jute back on a pastel carpet to eliminate some potential browning in that area?
Most jute is scoured, and the acid solution that we're using will prevent browning to begin with. So even though that should be a consideration in your mind, it's not a major problem that we should have to worry about. All right, that's taken care of. Our cola. Again, most of these I would just go ahead and precondition and go right on over them in the course of normal cleaning. But if you have one particular persistent spot, it might be a good idea to apply a little bit of the spotter.
Well, during normal cleaning, would you recommend to spot first or spot after the cleaning?
Normal cleaning, we recommend that you spot after cleaning, especially on stain-resistant carpet these days. Okay, let's flush it out. Saturate, tamp, and extract with a little bit of vacuuming to dwell on that area, maybe even lofting a little bit. That means picking up your tool and allowing the air to flow through.
Airflow?
That's correct.
Do the same thing on the one next door there? It looks like an egg spill or something?
We sure will. In fact, that's the next one we'll be talking about, how to get rid of those persistent protein spots using enzyme digesters. All right, let's talk about some of those protein spots, the blood, the egg, the milk, those types of things that we run across from time to time. Okay. Here we've got some egg yellow specifically on the carpet. It's been there for quite a while, and don't know whether it's going to come out or not, but to begin with, we want to keep it simple. Again, one of those principles. So let's try a cool, neutral detergent solution first and foremost. We'll simply apply it to the egg spot with a clean spotting brush. We'll go ahead and tamp it in a little bit and and see if we can get that thing broken up a little bit. All right, let me vacuum that and see what we got. All right, we got a little bit of it out, so I'm going to come back and reapply neutral detergent solution, do a little bit of tamping.
And would that have any benefit to let it set for a minute or two while you do something else?
Sure
if you
would.
actually had the time to let it dwell?
Yeah, there's no question about it, Jim. The more dwell time you can provide, the better off you're going to be. And you can see how yellow my foaming solution is getting. Now, you're not likely to have anything as really gross as this particular spot is. It's a pretty heavy one because we just simply took straight egg white and put it directly on there. Usually, rather egg yellow and put it directly on there. Okay, let's get rid of that. Now, you want to stay on the cool spot side too when working with this. So
Cool, you mean the temperature of your flush water?
That's right.
Water?
Let me just flush over it a little bit and see what kind of result we get as well.
When you say cool, what are you talking about? Just regular tap water or 60, 80 degrees? Where are we at on these?
We're talking about something between 70 and 100 degrees. Okay. That's generally fairly cool. Now, most of that is coming on out.
Yeah.
However, we're going to stop right here. If we have a persistent protein spot, we need to talk about the use of our enzyme digesters for a moment. So if you'll get that out of our spotting kit, let's discuss them. This is the enzyme digester that we use when a protein spot is very persistent and stays around for a period of time. It's a white powdered compound, and we'll be applying this directly to the spot itself. All right. There are 4 things that you have to remember when using enzyme digesters if you're going to use them properly. Conditions for use, number 1, you've got to have a neutral area. That's why we use our neutral spotter in preparing the spot, in flushing out the excess.
Okay, so it's moist now.
Yeah, and in this case, because this has only been there for a few days, I could probably continue to use my neutral spotter, you understand, and get it all out. But to illustrate the use of this digester, number 1, I've got to have a moist area, and I've got to have a neutral area. Those are the first 2 requirements. Neutral in pH. Anything from 6 to 8 we would consider fairly neutral. Third, I need a temperature range of 100 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes to an hour. So there's some time involved as well. Okay, so here's how you accomplish all of that. First of all, I've got moisture here, and I've got a neutral area. Then take a little bit of my enzyme digester, and I'm going to sprinkle it directly on the spot. Now, I could mix this up and apply it to the spot.
So what you're really saying is this digesters, they're actually going to eat or just dissolve, or these aren't the like little scrubbing bubble people that you see on the old commercial where they
No, not exactly.
They're not going to chew that up, okay.
Sure.
Is this just going to dissolve it, or when you say enzyme, is it actually a bacteria that feeds on it?
It is actual a bacterial enzyme that is going to feed on the protein material that's there. All right, so we've applied our digester. Next thing we're going to do is get it a little bit moist. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do is we're going to turn your heater on, please, sir.
Sure.
All right, give me a little bit of spray water. Now, next thing we're going to do is apply some hot water to a towel. I'm going to just mist this on and get the towel nice and wet.
This is how you're going to keep it warm.
This is how I'm going to heat it up and keep it warm. All right, now I'm going to place that on top of the enzymes, and then I'm going to take a bucket with hot water in it so that I get good heat transfer, place that right on top of the spot, and then I'm going to leave it for somewhere around 20 to 60 minutes. Digestion takes time. There's no way to shortcut that process. So if it's going to work right, you've got to give it that 20 to 60 minutes of dwell time. All right, now we're going to skip over that because, as I say, I think that we'll be able to get it. But we have a neutral area. We've got moisture. The enzyme digesters have been applied. We take a towel, run it under a tap with hot water, fold it up a little bit so that it'll retain as much heat as possible, and then fill a bucket with hot water so that we get that heat transfer effect.
Okay.
Leave it for 20 minutes, an hour, while we go and do something else. Clean another room, vacuum the carpet, do whatever is necessary. Then we'll come back after that period of time, lift the bucket off, lift the towel off, and you can see that we are getting a little bit of transfer. I'm not sure whether the eye of the camera can pick that up, but there is some yellow that is coming off.
I can see the hinge from back here, yeah.
Due to the
Sure
transfer that we're getting. Okay, and then finally we just go ahead and rinse the carpet.
How big of an area would you consider utilizing an enzyme on? 12 inches in diameter, 12 inches, up to 2 feet. You're going to flip the carpet over and get rid of all the pet urine bacteria that's in there. Can you do that with this type of digester?
Well, animal urine is really a different subject entirely. As you can see, all of that flushed out.
Yeah.
But animal urine is really a different discipline entirely. It deals with bacteria. It deals with a lot of microorganisms. It has some cholesterol, it has some enzymes, and it has a variety of different components. And later on, perhaps we'll be making another tape on odor removal that will go into that in more depth. But this is for spotting.
Okay.
The enzyme deodorants, which I think is the question you're asking here, is an entirely different product. And it's used much more liberally. It's in a liquid form instead of a powder form, so considerably different. But we'll be talking about that a little later on. But enzyme digesters, this is what is involved in removing that. Summary of the 4 points involved. Remember, you've got to have moisture. Number 2, you need a neutral area. Number 3, you've got to have good temperature. Number 4, you need a time factor that's necessary for the complete removal. And that'll take care of it. That'll get a lot of the blood, the milk, the egg, the protein spots that are persistent out of that carpet.
Okay.
Jim, we're down to our special agent spotters at this point. This includes our strong acids, our reducers, and our bleaches, or our color removing agents. Now, let me, with the exception of rust spots, of course, let me hasten to add that it's important for a technician to be sure to get a condition report on the carpet before he starts using any kind of color removal agent. Obviously, you can't always control the result of the job. You can't always control the removal of color from the carpet. Those kinds of things will happen. And if the consumer is going to want to hold you responsible, it might be a good idea to get a condition report stating what the conditions are before you started and some of the possibilities that might occur along the line. Okay, let's start off with our rust removing agents.
Okay.
There are 2 types of rust removers on the market. For many, many years, our industry has been using a product called hydrofluoric acid. I think we can see that all right, but hydrofluoric acid is a very strong product, usually has the name of rusticator, comes in a heavy gauge plastic, white or yellow container. Hydrofluoric acid has really come under scrutiny for a variety of reasons. First of all, if you get it on your skin, it tends to want to serve as a local anesthetic, so you don't feel very much while it's burning away on your skin.
It'll penetrate through.
Right, and it doesn't really neutralize until it gets to calcium, and you know where it finds calcium, of course.
Yes.
All the way into the bone. So you would never want to touch this product with your hands. If you accidentally got it on you, it'd be a good idea to immediately get it flushed with water or to neutralize it with a little bit of an alkaline spotter. This also would help you considerably in taking care of that problem, to neutralize it.
When you said 2 types, I just thought you meant 2 brands. In other words, the other one is different.
Yes, it is. But let me finish a couple of other things that you need to worry about with the rusticator product. Not only will it burn your skin, but it will also etch glass very easily. The eyeglasses that you have on, the
Plate glass windows in the store.
Plate glass windows, the fumes can fog them or smoke them up, and that's a permanent effect too. Third thing it can do is corrode metal. It either turns it black, or in the case of some of the aluminum metals, it'll turn it white. And more recently, we've noticed that some of the blue dyes in carpet, when treated with this, might turn red or pink in color. Now, the corrective action to take is immediately come back with the opposite of your acid spotter, and that is an alkaline spotter. Sometimes that will reverse the effect of that color change, but you need to watch that one real carefully.
I've seen that on upholstery with a little bit of, you're trying to put a rust remover on a button,
right?
And then you have a purple button.
Sure do.
Blue button.
Sure do. Okay, the second type of rust remover on the market is what's called oxalic acid. Now, oxalic acid comes in an 8% solution, and it's a little more slow acting than the hydrofluoric acid, but it is much safer.
Much safer.
No question about it. Now, I'll go ahead and apply to the rust spots that we've got here. We tried to create some, and I'll guarantee it's a bit of a problem.
They take a while to rust, doesn't it?
Seems like there's no trouble at all to create rust spots on location, but
no, they happen before you leave.
That's right. All right. So I've made my application there. Don't need to touch it. Just let it work in with the spout. I'm going to use the hydrofluoric on the other side.
Now, are we really removing it, or are we just neutralizing the color?
We're changing the color of it. That's where the difference comes in.
Oh yeah, you can see action already over there. Can't you?
Yeah. With the hydrofluoric acid, the stronger, the more aggressive one.
But if I hang over the top of it, I may have streaks in my glasses, is what you're telling me.
That's always a possibility, and certainly never touch that one. So it's gotten the reaction almost immediately. My oxalic acid, a little slower. Just working it in with my spout here. And that'll eventually get us taken care of. It's going to be hard to see what kind of result I've gotten until I wind things up.
Okay.
All right, now, give it just a few moments for reaction, and then we have to neutralize it. We always have to neutralize it. And
both
there
of them?
are two ways to do it. Yes, either one of them. You should neutralize it. Even though oxalic is a lot safer, it should be neutralized and rinsed. So we neutralize it using our alkaline spotter. Remember, our alkaline spotter has ammonia in it. And that's the effective ingredient that provides for neutralization.
Could you use household ammonia?
Sure. Household setting ammonia could be used.
Would it have to be cut down a little bit, or just full strength? Or
use it according to the label direction. There are a variety of different types out there on the market, so it's difficult for me to say which one's which. All right, I'm going to go ahead and neutralize both of them. And then we rinse as the final stage of the neutralizing process. That it's a good idea to rinse thoroughly. If you're going to be crawling across this, you want to make sure that all of that's gone. Okay, so neutralize with ammonia and rinse. And as you can see, both of them work effectively, but obviously the oxalic works a little bit slower than the hydrofluoric does. But it gives you a greater degree of safety while you're working too. Also, you have less problems with shipping. As you've probably noticed, when you receive this, it comes with a bottle of neutralizer, and the shipping regulations relating to hydrofluoric acid these days have gotten pretty stringent as well. Not so with the oxalic. Okay, so rust spots. Now let's get on into the other color removal agents. I've got some Kool-Aid here, two different areas, and I'll tell you why that is, and I've got some mustard on the carpet too. Now, first one I want to work on is the Kool-Aid. Now, let me show you something. This is stain-resistant carpet. I'm just going to take my neutral detergent solution. I'm going to provide a little bit of lubrication onto this rather dark Kool-Aid spot here, and I'm going to rinse it. So give me a little rinse action there, if you will.
Seems to be coming out a whole lot easier than they used to.
Well, the point that's the whole point we're trying to make here. Today, with stain-resistant carpet, if cleaners are careful, if cleaners are careful, they can flush it right out, but your procedure is what's critical here. Oftentimes, cleaners will apply an alkaline solution. They'll get in there and give it a lot of tamping action, and what happens is the alkalinity will destroy the stain resist treatment, and the dyes will flow into open dye sites and will bond with the fiber, and we've got a permanent stain at that point.
It relocates themselves.
So that's why I think it's important for us to just apply a little bit of neutral detergent solution for lubrication, and then come in and go through the
so that's kind of the first step.
activity. Yeah.
You always use that neutral detergent on something like this.
Right, and that maintains the stain resistance. Now, of course, we can reapply the fluorochemical or the stain resistance products like Scotchgard Stain Release or the Master Series treatments. Give us that capability. Now, I've got another spot here on the carpet in which we have purposely taken off the stain resistance and then applied the Kool-Aid. Now, let me show you how much more difficult it gets. And this is where we get into real live spotting technique too, because I have no idea whether we're going to be able to get this out completely. But we'll start off with a little neutral detergent solution once again and see what kind of activity we get. Just applying that to our Kool-Aid spot in our on our non-stain resistant carpet.
In other words, you've stripped the stain resistancy out with the use of high alkaline.
Yes, that's right. Also a disinfectant we used on that area first too. So I've got my detergent applied. I'll go ahead and rinse.
That doesn't seem to be cooperating quite as well.
You're not as impressed, I take it.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I think that's time for me to get my tool belt on.
No, not yet. Let's try a couple of other things.
I mean, you can do more to this?
Well, we hope we can. Can't always. But it is a good argument for having carpet repair techniques and capabilities. All right, now as you are perfectly aware from all the advertising through our media and trade magazines, things like that, there are a lot of different products out there on the market that are used in specifically for red stain removal or stain removal. Red Out, Cool Off, products like this. If you'll give me my measuring cup, we're going to see, and if you'll plug in my iron for me as well, Mr. Carfield. There are two specific products that we can use for this purpose. First of all, the red stain removers, such as this product here that I have called Red Out. I'm going to put this into a measuring cup. Just pour out enough to saturate the stain. The product is used undiluted, of course. And I'm going to very carefully apply the product to all the area of stain. Now I need for you to go ahead and moisten a towel for me. This product contains some detergents. It contains some alcohol to loosen up dye spots, which it does very effectively. And it contains some mild reducing agents, so that we are able to accomplish several things in rapid succession here. We can go ahead and tamp this in just a little bit for uniform distribution. See what that accomplishes for us.
Always gently driving the chemical in for penetration.
Right, that's what we're attempting to do here. Now, I've got a moist towel, and what I'm going to do with this moist towel, assuming my iron is pretty hot now, and it is, I'm going to use a heat transfer technique, where I take my towel, place the iron on it, hold it there for about 20 seconds. Notice that we're cooking away here.
So the heat just creates
objective is to get a little heat transfer going here and to try to loosen up that spot.
How about on some of the old or some of the facial printed carpets? Is this a little bit of a touchy situation? You know, I would feel comfortable with a solution dyed. Of course, this one I'm sure is a vat dyed.
See if we can get the camera down on this and see what kind of result we're getting. See, there's some transfer of my red stain, and I'm going to apply just a little bit more. Now, this is one of those that takes time and patience too, no question about it. Uniform distribution. Careful that I don't distort my face yarns, and come back and go through it again. Now, there are times, it depends on the degree of stain resistance that's been lost to the carpet. If you're on a non-stain resistant carpet, don't get your hopes up here.
Sure.
I hate to be the one that has to tell you that. I know I'm the expert in the industry. I'm supposed to know everything, how to take care of every situation. But unfortunately, it just doesn't always work.
Well,
I'm
you
sad to
can't
say.
always promise miracles. We understand
Well,
that.
I wish I could. But anyway, give it about 20 seconds. Go ahead and pick it up and see what we've accomplished. Well, there's a little more that's come out.
Yeah, so again, if we're patient and we give it plenty of time,
Don't burn your hands too badly.
no, we wouldn't want to do that. It'll eventually
Now let's try it again.
lift, or we can guarantee we'll make it look a little better, I guess.
That's right.
I mean, I don't think we should promise the sun and the moon, just one or the other.
Besides that, all that steam is good to open up your sinuses on a...
Does the steam affect the face yarns?
Well, the heat, that's a real good question,
I mean,
because
we're
people are
talking
always
live
concerned
steam.
about that.
Yeah.
Yes, we are, but you've got to realize that the face yarns are heat set. The twist is heat set. The low side probably about 260 degrees. We're working with about 212, maybe a little higher than that here. Okay, let's see what we've accomplished. Getting a little bit more. Oh, may need just a little bit more of my measuring cup, please, sir. I think I've got them. So the point is, you just continue to work it. I don't know how far we'll be able to take this. Sometimes you get it right away. Sometimes it takes a little more time. Sometimes you actually remove the color from the carpet before you get the job accomplished.
Well, that's why I was asking about some of the printed carpets or the color fastness.
Let's see, I better work a
You
lot.
know, you're almost making me feel like Mr. Wizard now that we're about all the way down here on the end.
Well, I hope so. And once we rinse, we'll be able to see what we've really accomplished. Got another white spot on my rag here.
And obviously rinse with hot water.
Yes, we're going
No,
to use
we
warm
can't.
water to flush out as much as we can. Another 15, 20 seconds.
Assuming the carpet maybe has had a lot of traffic and the face yarns are very distorted, they're scratched and craggy, even on a stain resistant, is that going to be more difficult to remove it out of a yarn fiber that's been scratched and distorted and opened up?
You bet it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the nicer looking the carpet is, the less distortion, the better
All
off
right,
we're
I'm
going to
still getting some transfer.
be. But we've got
so-
90, looks like 90% of it out.
Yeah, I think so. Now, the question is, how much color have we lost?
Well, from here it looks wet and it looks kind of white, but I don't know what it'll look like when it's groomed out.
Well, let's see. One more time. We'll give it one more shot, and then we'll move on from there, because we don't have time to spend on this all day. But at least it gives our audience an idea of the technique that's used. Patience again.
Yeah,
Patience.
patience.
Getting back to those principles that we went through the first of the tape. We went through those quickly. I hope that the speed with which we cover them does not give you an indication of
Well,
importance.
that's one thing nice, that most VCRs have a rewind on it, so they can start over
All
again
right.
and catch it. Huh?
Watch this twice, and maybe it'll be out by then. All right, we're still getting a little bit of transfer. Let's go ahead and flush one time and see what we've accomplished.
Well, there might be a tad bit of dye loss, wouldn't you say? Or is that just the fact that it's going to be nice and smooth? Well, if it dries, I don't know, if it dries out, it looks like it may come back.
No, I think we've got some color loss there. There's no question about it. But that's the sacrifice that you take. But after all, the customer's got a choice. They can live with a red spot, or they can live with something that's a little lighter.
Yes, and this is much more tolerable, there's no doubt about it.
And at this point, too, you can come back, and if you've been to one of the spot dye schools that are offered by the industry, you can come back and apply just a little bit of additional color there, and perhaps bring the spot back to a much more acceptable level.
well,
Now,
that's
the
all
final spot that we've got here is one that is, we've got a little mustard. So let me start off with a little neutral detergent solution.
A little rusted. Is that part mustard and then a little bit of rust?
Could be. It's getting late, huh? All right, this is mustard. Now, mustard, we've already looked at the ingredients. We know that the salt and all those kinds of things are going to come out. Have a towel, please, so we can do a little blotting. here we go. Definitely got a little yellow transfer here.
Let's see if I can remember. I'll clean your tamp brush.
Thank you, sir. A little more tamping that goes on here. Some cleaners like to actually tamp and absorb simultaneously. I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. Okay, getting a little more transferring. So I'll continue with my neutral solution and see what I can accomplish. I'm getting a nice yellow.
Amazing.
Here's what I'm talking about, the tamping and the transfer all at once.
Time.
Yeah.
Well, that seems real practical to me. If we can avoid, eliminate one step and benefit ourselves.
Getting a little more out. So we'll continue on one more time, and then I'm going to flush it and see what we get accomplished.
And we're just working that with this neutral detergent.
That's right. All we're using right now is a neutral detergent solution. Again, you start off with the mild, simple things, and then you progress upward from there. Another blot. Now the turmeric is a strong dispersed dye.
What do you mean dispersed?
Dispersed dye is just a different class of dyes. Most nylon carpet is dyed with acid dyes, but it can be dyed with a dispersed dye as well. Now let's do a little flushing here, see what we get.
Well, it looks like it might be a little stubborn right there in the middle, but you've at least removed almost 60% of it, maybe 70% with that neutral detergent.
Right? Well, the point I'm trying to make here is even though this is stain-resistant carpet, it does not resist staining by strong dispersed dyes such as the turmeric found in mustard. It's also found in herbal tea. It's in chicken cup of soup by Lipton, a variety of other different materials.
How about some of the high temperature beverages when we're talking about coffees and teas? If they're very, very hot, does that affect the stain resistance absorbency when it drops on it?
Sure, it makes it, on any carpet, it's going to make it a little more difficult to remove, though not impossible. You can usually get those with the tannin dye stains out. But the hotter they are, of course, the more difficult they usually are to remove. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're getting to the point at which we're no longer getting any color transfer. Using our neutral solution, let's progress to our stronger alkaline spotting solution. See what we get there. Tamp.
And again, if we had time to let that set,
Wouldn't hurt.
wouldn't hurt a thing.
Blot. In this case, virtually nothing else is coming out.
Transfer, yeah.
Yeah, we're not getting any yellow transfer anymore. So,
Well, so now what, boss?
in all probability, that's all that you can get accomplished with this. Let's rinse and see what we've got.
Are you talking about spot dyeing in that particular condition? Can you spot dye, or would you have to actually strip that color out?
You very well may have to strip it out.
And start over?
And even though it doesn't always work, that's where this product comes in handy here. This is our reducing agent, and I do want to make sure that everyone understands how to use this properly. Now, if you'll hand me my little beaker over there, I'll show you something that's rather phenomenal. This is, of course, some Kool-Aid that we have in a beaker, and it illustrates how this material works. This is the reducing agent that I have. I'm going to place a little of the reducing agent into our beaker of Kool-Aid, and I want you to watch what happens here.
And when you say reducing agent, I don't...
A reducer removes oxygen from a dye structure in order to render it colorless. Now, if you're looking at the bottom there, you can see that already it's starting to work, and as we stir it up a little bit, by just shaking it, bingo, whole solution goes white. As our cameramen fall on the floor,
Yeah,
I'm sure
we've
they're
just
amazed.
mesmerized everybody in the
That's right.
studio.
We'll have some new cleaners once we get through here, or at least some spotters anyway. Well, it works great in a beaker. It's very impressive. However, Bad news is it doesn't always work on the carpet. So let's take a look at the procedures for using it. Now, I want to say this. This is an underrated product. It does work in a lot of different circumstances if people will just go ahead and give it a try. Any residual dye stain, anything that's left. Now, I've already gotten the area damp, and I could mix it up in a trigger sprayer or in a flip-top spotting bottle. In this case, I'm just going to sprinkle it onto my residual mustard dye.
Now, is this relatively safe on all fabrics, all fibers?
It's safe on all fibers and on most colors. I didn't say all, I said most. All right, if you'll give me my acid spotter, it's accelerated by acids, so I'm going to drip apply the acid spotter. Now, usually the carpet turns just a little bit brown, regardless of what color it is, when I apply the acid spotter. This is turning a little yellow. Sometimes it'll turn a little brown on you as well. Okay, just let my stripper sit there for a few minutes.
Okay.
I usually give it anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds of reaction time. It does take a little time. Now, as I said, safe on all fibers, even wool it can be used on. It's safe on most colors, but if used repetitiously, it will take the dye out, just like we saw over here with our other red stain remover.
Would it be more of a more chancy on like your blues and your reds, your least stable colors, or?
Yes, blue of course is the weakest of the dyes, and the reds tend to be a little stronger. The yellows are particularly strong. Okay, now once we have given it time to react, we'll go ahead and rinse it out. Let's go ahead and flush. Now I'm already seeing a little bit of color change around this area, so I know that I cannot continue this process. I've got to shut it down at this point. I've got to go to something else. I'm just simply not going to get it out with this technique. But there is one other technique I can apply. Can you guess which one that is?
Well, if you ask me, I know what it'd be.
What's that?
I'd get my toolbox out and we'd do a section.
Okay. Now, to wind up this, I want to hit one more spot. If you'll give me my duckbill napping shears. Cleaners often run into problem spots that are caused by cigarette burns or ashes that come out of fireplaces, things like that.
That's what we've got up here.
And that's what we've got up here.
Topical surface burn.
Yeah. So what I want to do is illustrate the reason why we have these shears here. If you'll just put them underneath the burn, I don't know why I'm telling you this. Since you're
well, I have someone that's usually a little more patient than I am.
All right. Just simply get right up underneath the edge, lift upward. That's why the scissors are offset there, so that we can apply that technique for lifting underneath and just clipping away. And eventually that little cigarette burn will be reduced to nothing.
Now, we might have a small dip contour down there, but it's going to be certainly better than the burn.
You betcha. Consumer probably won't notice it. Now, now that I've gotten that taken care of, I'm going to work the fibers around it to try to minimize that dip you're talking about. I can see it, you can see it, but I'll guarantee you from a standing position, no one would be able to see that, and that would be perfectly suitable. Same thing would be true if my yellow stains were right on the tips here. I might go along with my shears and see if I couldn't improve the appearance of it just a little bit. But I hope this illustrates to our audience that you're not going to get all those spots out. Some of them just aren't going to work. Sometimes it's necessary to remove as much of the color as you can and then come back with a little bit of spot dyeing. But that's just about all you can do.
We've about covered them all, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we've gotten some good results here. So, other spots and stains out there that I'm sure people are saying, what about this? What about the furniture stain? Well, basically, it'd be a color removal stain. You do a lot of other different types of stains will respond to the same exact techniques that we've been using throughout here. But the important thing to remember is that you can get them if you stay at it aggressively. Okay? Well, the only thing we haven't covered is peroxide. I think we mentioned that we use that on the color added spots. It's a mild oxidizing agent, should be used in a 3% form. The 3% solution is available at drugstores in a medicinal form.
Blend out 50/50.
This we get at hair stores, hairdresser supply, barber supplies. 20 volume is 6%. and you cut that half with water. The other oxidizing agent is chlorine bleach. Now, why not use chlorine? Because it's going to take the color out of the carpet almost immediately. This is a 5.25% solution of sodium hypochlorite. In Canada, with our Canadian friends, it would be a 6% solution called Javex instead of Clorox. But at any rate, the problem with Clorox in the context of carpet spotting is that the fibers that you can use it on, the ones that will tolerate chlorine bleach, don't stain.
And those
polyester, acrylic, olefin.
Okay.
All right. The ones that you need it on, you can't use it on.
Because it's too destructive.
That's right. Takes the color out of nylon almost immediately. Wool, it'll actually dissolve the fiber itself. You'll always get the spot out, but you have this gaping hole that you have to explain, and that's kind of tough.
It is.
Okay. So those are the other two agents that we have in the color removal category. Unfortunately, you can't use the chlorine, so we'll get that out of the way. And there are rare uses for hydrogen peroxide. Mix it up only when you need it. It's a gas suspended in water, and after a short period of time, it does dissipate. All right, I think that takes care of all of them. We'll clean off our table here, just take a quick look at what we've accomplished and do a quick summary, and we'll be out of here.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, that pretty well takes care of it. As you can see, we've gotten good results down here using our volatile dry solvent. All the spots have been removed. Our non-volatile solvent, with a little time and effort, they've come on out. The neutral and the alkaline spotters, the food spots, we have no problem with those. The ones that we used our acid spotters on, the tannin-based spots, those have come out pretty well. No particular problem with those. The only ones that we've had any trouble with, as a matter of fact, our digester did a good job on our egg spot. Came right on out of there. The only ones we've had any problems with whatsoever are the ones that will dye any kind of carpet. Primarily the mustard with that strong dispersed dye called turmeric, and then of course a little color loss in our Kool-Aid spot. But I think this realistically gives our audience an opportunity to see what you can accomplish as well as what you can't accomplish. It's a practical living demonstration of specialized carpet spotting.
What's not real.
That's right.